Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. I see the SNP are up to their usual sneakery and sleekitness. They had information, they covered it up, they hid it, and they refused to let it out for 7 months. And in the interim, they lied. They blamed other people. They distracted. This time, of course, it is Mairi McAllan. You could tell that from the thumbnail. She had a whole load of net zero information that should have been released, but instead it was kept hidden away, and they blamed Westminster for all the problems because they didn't want to admit whose problem it actually was. It was, of course, Mairi McAllan's, a woman massively over-promoted into roles for which she is not particularly suitable. She has too many jobs, too many responsibilities. Either that or the jobs themselves aren't important enough that she can have 3 of them. But it seems that these simple jobs are still a bit too much for the golden girl of the SNP. Someone, I think, being lined up to be a future leader. Why not? She's probably carrying the baby of a previous one, allegedly, perhaps. One only has to look at the time frame of her getting pregnant and her spending time in a Dubai hotel with Hamza Yousaf. I know it's scurrilous, I know it is just gossip, but hey, timing is everything in politics. And there was, of course, that rumour of a very major, shall we say, affair between 2 senior people within the SNP. You know what? We'll be watching very carefully when she presents her child to the people. We all know, don't we? We all know. Anyway, let's have a look to see why Mairi McAllan has, not for the first time, had a bit of a cock-up. Here goes. So, SNP cover-up saw Mairi McAllan keep net zero warning quiet for 7 months. 7 months in which the truth was covered up, hidden and kept away from the public. And in that interim, they blamed Westminster. The Net Zero Secretary was told in September last year that a key report would be delayed, but tried to blame the UK government for an announcement a week later, because they can never admit that they have screwed up badly. See, there's the thing. She's a good-looking young woman. You can see that. Absolutely is. But good looks do not necessarily translate through to competency. And alas, there are very few, should I say, in the SNP who are in any way competent. She's not amongst them, you know. Neither's Shona, but hey, that's a whole different ballgame. Anyway, the SNP has found itself at the centre of a fresh cover-up storm after it emerged Mairi McAllan has kept a warning about Scotland's net zero targets secret for 7 months. The Net Zero Secretary was told in September last year that targets for 2030 were unlikely to be met and that a publication of a key report would be delayed. Delayed, not because the figures were in any way delayed in getting in, but delayed because they didn't want to tell the truth at the time, that it was an absolute cock-up, that it was an absolute mess and unachievable. Because if it did, at the time, they were still very snugly in bed with the Greens and it would cause a lot of problems. At least, once the Greens were gone, then they could release it and the Greens could sit and be grumpy, but it wouldn't matter. Nobody cared. Maybe not many people cared beforehand, to be honest. Anyway, she only admitted to Holyrood last month that the targets were being scrapped, a move that helped hasten the end of the Butte House agreement between the SNP and the Greens. McAllan told the Scottish Parliament she was rolling back on key pledges to cut emissions by 75% in April. Net zero, of course, is a load of old dingo's kidneys. It cannot possibly be achieved. It's like perpetual motion or, you know, eternal happiness. These things are nice in theory, but alas, in the universe in which we live, not achievable. The Nats have been accused of shameful secrecy over the cover-up. And Scottish Conservative MSP Maurice Golden said, "This shows that the Scottish Government knew as early as September that its climate change targets would need to be dropped. And dropped they have been, because it is impossible. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows net zero is a line of BS designed by the WEF to try and force us to eat bugs while they eat their champagne in their private jets." If the SNP said had come clean about the situation sooner, we'd all have had more time to come up with a solution. This is a more shameful secrecy by a desperate government on the issue of incredible importance. It's not important. Like buggery, it's important. If climate change was important, there'd be no private jets. The warning was issued on September the 13th, which is the anniversary of when the moon left orbit back in 1999. And if you know what I'm on about, well done you. This was when the government's Deputy Director for Domestic Climate Change, Phil Raines, told McAllan it would not be possible to create a credible draft CCP. They call it Climate Change Plan, but more like Chinese Communist Party, isn't it? To the current timescales. It's not possible at all. And even if they did, even if they shut the whole of Scotland down forever and there was nothing, it would make not one jot of difference. Not one jot. The Chinese population rises each month. It rises each month by the population of Scotland. Do they really think that closing down the whole of Scotland is going to make any difference whatsoever? China and India alone, 2 countries, 75% of the world's problem. If you truly want to target climate issues, those 2 countries. McAllan also let the Scottish Greens know of the delay in November, and she only admitted last month that the Scottish Government was ditching the 2030 pledge as she continued to blame the UK government because it's always Westminster. It's never the SNP. It's never Mairi McAllan being useless at his job. It's never an inept and shameful party destroying everything and coming up with weird ideas and relying on brilliant ideas from the Greens because they've literally run out of their own. Never that. Always Westminster, folks. The trouble is, they keep using this Westminster line, and they've used it so much, nobody believes them. Even if Westminster did something tomorrow, people go, nah, I don't believe you. Yeah, Westminster. It's the girl who cried wolf, time and time again. And in the end, the wolf will eat her. The Scottish Green spokesman continued to blame Westminster despite the evidence, saying due to the UK government's unexpected U-turn on its climate policies in September 2023, we were made aware that delivering a credible plan would be difficult. But they knew in November that it wasn't Westminster. But they've got to get the line in because, you know, Westminster is the big bad wolf, isn't it? The Scottish Government said it was important that making any major decisions regarding climate change legislation that we properly consulted and awaited the expert opinion of blah blah bollocks. Nobody cares, nobody listens, you've failed, it's not possible. You're slowly coming to realise that it's not possible to have this in a growing world. Only once we've peak humaned and on the way down does climate change action really take effect. And so there we go. They're just a bunch of liars, aren't they? They can't help themselves. Absolutely lie at every opportunity. It's always Westminster's fault. Oh, and it's climate crisis. No climate crisis. But anyway, it'll solve itself once we peak. Once we peak over 10 billion people on the way down, it'll all get better. Why? Because the dying will outstrip the living, and the world will suddenly take a breath, and that's when we know we're okay. And it's likely to fall to something like about 7 billion, which is lower than we have now, simply because of all the people dropping off and the lower birth rates. Marvellous, isn't it? Incidentally, Thanos, snap your fingers, halve the world's population. When does that take you? Bang. And it's 1992. Half the world's population born since 1992. Ho hum. Anyway, round off there. Thank you very much. We'll come up and we'll finish this video. There you go. Mairi McAllan lying and covering up again. She's good at it. She's lied and covered up for 7 months now, 6 months, something like that. Done very well. Her husband doesn't know, I suspect. Anyway, we'll round that off. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will speak to you later. Bye.